The SUV segment is a profitable niche for car makers, and the high-performance end of it even more so. Here's the model that claims to rule the mid-sized part of that sector, the thunderous V8-powered Mercedes-AMG GLC 63.
This is the fastest, most powerful mid-sized SUV you can buy, the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63. It's the only V8-powered contender of its kind, it's politically incorrect, and it's fantastically desirable. All the right ingredients then. In fact, it's the kind of machine that you might conceivably come up with if, in a pleasant few moments, you were to mentally assemble all the elements necessary to create your ideal car, assuming you could have only one and assuming that money was no object. It'd need plenty of interior space, yet it couldn't be so large that cornering agility would be compromised. You'd want a commanding driving position, you'd want four-wheel drive traction, storming acceleration, and an engine soundtrack to die for. Now, this Mercedes confidently ticks all those boxes. You can even have it in coupe SUV form if you don't want this standard body shape. No other brand has more experience in high-performance SUVs like this one. The Mercedes legacy in this market niche dating back to 1999 and the fast but rather wayward ML55. The company's AMG tuning division in the Falterbach has got rather better at producing go-faster versions of Mercedes products since then. They're now good for corners as well as straight lines, and it really shifted up a gear with the introduction of the 4-litre V8 that we first saw in the AMG GT performance sports car in 2014. Since then, that twin-turbo engine has been fitted into a variety of Mercedes-AMG products, including the C63 and E63 models that share much of their engineering with this top GLC. Here, it can put out as much as 510 horsepower and a thumping 700 newton-meters of torque, that latter figure enough to embarrass this car's most direct segment competitors, the Porsche Macan Turbo and the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Quite a prospect then. Let's put this car to the test. If any part of the Mercedes model range demonstrates the extremes the brand feels it necessary to offer to buyers in the current market, it's that for mid-sized SUVs. At one end of the acceptability scale in this segment, there's the company's eco-champion, the all-electric EQC, which puts out no emissions at all and gets powered by a set of lithium-ion batteries. And at the other end lies this, the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63. It runs on the same underpinnings as its green-minded showroom stablemate, and it weighs about the same too, but it couldn't be less acceptable to the green lobby if it had a whale harpooning gun built into its bonnet. Now this is why. That 4-litre twin-turbo V8 that this car uses, much the same unit as you'll find in the AMG GT sports car. Here it puts out either 476 or 510 horsepower, depending on your choice between standard or S-spec versions of the two body styles on offer, this boxier SUV variant or the trendier coupe shape. Whatever your preference, you get 4MATIC plus 4-wheel drive and a 9-speed AMG SpeedShift MCT auto gearbox with an inbuilt race start function. Use that and your kidneys will be thrust to the back of your rib cage as this car hurls itself forward from rest, reaching 62 in just 4 seconds in the standard GLC 63 or 3.8 seconds in this GLC 63S variant. If we're honest, the launch of this GLC 63 in the spring of 2018 took us slightly by surprise. There was by then already a well-established performance-orientated Mercedes-AMG model in the GLC lineup, the V6 engine 43 variant, which continues and puts out a very decent 367 horsepower. Now that's quite enough power to enable the GLC to take on the fastest performance mid-sized SUV models from BMW and Audi. Yet buyers always want more, which has led other brands to try to redefine just how fast a mid-sized SUV might be persuaded to go. Now first there was the Porsche Macan Turbo, then Alfa Romeo decided to shoehorn a Ferrari V6 into its Stelvio, creating that lineup's Quadrifoglio flagship model. Offering a car in this class with a big V8 plumbed in up front was the logical next step, and Mercedes couldn't resist taking it. They've done more here than just supersizing the power output, of course. Proper AMG models handle deftly through the corners these days, and while this one does battle weight and height when it comes to cornering agility, it'll still surprise you through the turns. We'd give some of the credit for that to the intuitive cornering assistance delivered by the standard rear limited slip differential, which is mechanically operated in the standard GLC 63 and electronically driven in this S variant. Now it's this, as much as the 4MATIC Plus drive system, that makes the concept of putting around 500 horsepower through the wheels of this Mercedes feel entirely rational. Whereas in previous high-powered Mercedes SUV models, tight cornering with large slugs of power had to be balanced with quick reactions if you weren't going to end up facing the way you'd come. Here, the car simply shuffles its torque across the rear axle, hunkers down into the tarmac, and continues its forward trajectory. Or at least it does, providing you've not been daft enough to completely turn off the stability control system. Now, if you really don't like the tractional interference, there's an interim sport stability setting which dials it down a bit. Another thing that you'll notice if you have earlier experience of a high-performance Mercedes SUV, or indeed just about any AMG Mercedes, is the responsiveness of the paddle shift MCT transmission. This latest generation 9-speed box seems to have been engineered to serve your commands rather than merely to consider their validity, and that makes all the difference. Instead of requested downshifts on corner turning being ignored and then delivered in the speed shift system's own sweet time, they're responded to immediately with rifle crack precision, giving you a much greater feeling of control. The AMG high-performance braking system is excellent too, especially in the uprated guise, which is fitted to this S variant, although the ceramic discs we're trying here are optionally offered if you can afford them, and the steering is way better than we were expecting, although it still doesn't have quite the feelsome bite of a rival Porsche Macan Turbo. Still, a Falterback is definitely getting there. If you are going to be pushing on a bit, you'll be making plenty of use of the AMG Dynamic Select Drive program, there to tweak steering feel, throttle response, gear shift timings and stability control interference via 3 main modes: Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus. On this S variant, you also get an extra full red mist race setting. Now, if none of those suit, there's an individual menu allowing you to set up the drive systems of this Mercedes, just as a race driver would tune his race car. Now, via this, you can also alter the suspension settings if you want to. There's 3-chamber air springing and adaptive adjustable damping. That's a setup which has its own Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus modes, selectable via this separate switch on the center console. That's next to the switch, which allows you to adjust the throaty sound of the optional AMG Performance exhaust, and that is a must-have if you buy this car. But we were talking about suspension, which is the thing that gives this car its astonishing grip and go cornering ability. But it's also the aspect of this Mercedes that you might find hardest to live with. You might think that a car equipped with air suspension would ride rather well. Well, not this one. Even with the damping set in its softest comfort mode, the ride quality over porous surfaces has about as much suppleness as you get sliding down a dry ski slope on a tin tea tray. You can imagine what it's like in Sport or Sport Plus. To be fair, it's not bad on decent tarmac or on the highway, so on lengthier trips, this car can function in its intended alternative role as a comfortable long-distance cruiser. A trip to the shops, though, might leave you with a few more reservations. Still, if you take the view that it's going to be necessary to pay for your pleasures, then there's much else to like here. You simply don't expect a 2-ton Mercedes to be anything like as deliciously agile as this one is, or as rewarding. We'd expected an active anti-roll bar to be part of this model's spec, but as it turns out, this GLC 63 doesn't seem to really need it, with handling limits that you can only really properly explore on a circuit. That's where you could make use of the AMG Track Pace app that Mercedes offers. Now, that's there to gather speed, steering angle, time, vehicle position and temperature data from the car's command online infotainment system. It then allows you to analyse this information to improve your driving style or to share it with other AMG owners. Now, if you do regularly take to the track, you'll probably want to make sure that your 63 is fitted with the AMG Drivers Package. That's standard on this S model. This removes the 155 mph top speed limiter and raises maximum velocity to 174 miles an hour. Ultimately though, as with any proper AMG product, it's the thunderous sound that this GLC 63 makes that'll probably be most influential in making you want to buy it. As we've said with other AMG products, we're not sure that this Mercedes is as good as it could be when you're just not in the mood for its relentless reserves of performance, but when you are, there's really nothing quite like it. Now, on paper, you might think that a rival Alfa Stelvio Quadrifoglio or Porsche Macan Turbo Performance Pack model would be as fast, but both of those cars are 100 Newton meters of torque down on the kind of grunt this 63S model can generate, which really tells out on the road. Find the right stretch of clear, twisting tarmac, and the way that you can use all that pulling power becomes addictive, as is the way that the exhaust crackles and pops like campfire burning fireworks. Makes it almost impossible to ever forget the kind of car that you've ignored convention and gone out and bought, which perhaps is exactly as it should be. Get one of these bearing down in the fast lane on you and you'd scuttle over pretty quickly. Now, whether you choose your GLC 63 in this SUV, guys, or in its alternative coupe form, it's a mean looking beast. The lesser V6 engine, the Mercedes-AMG 43 4MATIC model, could easily be mistaken for an ordinary GLC with sporty AMG line trim, but from a glance at this V8 variant, you know you're dealing with a different thing entirely. The wider Jetwing-inspired front apron with these huge lower corner finned cutouts is one component in this change of demeanour, but the main thing that enhances this 63 model's added status is a distinctive styling feature that until recently was reserved for the AMG GT sports car, this Pan America front grille. It's trimmed in fine mesh and it features slats that are intentionally placed far enough apart for you to see the upgraded cooling hardware for that big V8 that lies behind it. Yes, that engine. We should talk about that. As with any full AMG unit, it's hand-built in line with this tuning division's unique one-man, one-engine approach, the power plant being embellished with a plaque featuring the signature of the engineer who worked on it. My compliments, Herr Dürer. It's at the side, of course, where the difference between this AMG 63 model's SUV and coupe body styles is most obvious. Both reveal their C-Class model ancestry with this gently sloping, dropping line just below the door handles as a distinctive characteristic of that car. Go for the GLC coupe variant and you get more steeply raked A-pillars and, of course, a roofline that falls away towards the rear. With either body shape, wider wheel arch claddings up front and rear lend emphasis to the muscular looks. The standard 63 gets 19-inch 10-spoke rims, but this 510 horsepower S model is identifiable by its 5 twin-spoke 20-inch alloys. This bespoke lower sill panel is intended to visually position the car closer to the road, and these roof rails are standard. They're finished in either aluminium or matte black, depending on the spec you've chosen. The broad, muscular shoulder line is carried through into the rear, which is dominated by a wide apron and the diffuser finished in grained black, which each side houses the huge twin tailpipes of the AMG Sports exhaust system. More bespoke differentiation lies with this neat roof spoiler with its integrated stoplight. As you expect, these split tail lamps feature full LED illumination. Under the skin, the basic underpinnings are much as you'd find in a C63 model, and here they feature a complex hybrid mix of lightweight aluminium and high-strength steel. That's still not enough to allow this car's weight to dip below the 2-ton mark, though, which makes it 170 kilos heavier than its most direct rival, the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Let's take a seat up front. Now, if you're wavering between this car and the Falterbach's more conventional C63 model, then this is where the GLC V8 will probably sell itself to you. You know, of course, that this SUV's high-set stance will put it at a disadvantage to an ordinary performance saloon estate when it comes to weight transfer and cornering agility, but somehow it's hard to resist the allure of such a commanding driving position. This S variant is differentiated by its grippy, flat-bottomed AMG Performance steering wheel and AMG Performance sports seats, both of which feature DTM-style Dinamica microfiber trim. There's also an AMG specific instrument binnacle, as well as AMG branding on the lower part of the centre stack here. You get some AMG specific controls on this centre console between the seats too, including the buttons for the 3-stage AMG ride control suspension, the 3-staged ESP stability control, and the AMG performance exhaust system. Nappa leather trims the seats, and it's also in this S variant stitched onto the upper dash and the door cards. Otherwise, there aren't too many changes over any ordinary AMG line trim GLC, which reminds you that this design's been around since 2015. Now, if you're familiar with other models in the Mercedes range, you might notice that this interior lacks the more sophisticated screens and the infotainment interfaces that you'll find on an E-Class or even on an A-Class these days. In comparison, this 8.4-inch Command Online centre dash monitor is now starting to look just a fraction old-fashioned, although its 3D graphics and intricate displays are still a model of clarity. This GLC doesn't get Mercedes' latest touch-sensitive controller, but it perseveres with the stylised protuberance that preceded it. This incorporates a rotary controller dial that swivels, slides and pushes, and a higher surface touchpad which permits numbers, characters and letters to be handwritten. Anything the infotainment display can't tell you will be covered off by the smaller colour screen that nestles between the two deeply cowled dials offered by the instrument binnacle. This gives you the trip, navigation, radio, media, telephone, assistance and service options that you access via the buttons on this perfectly positioned leather-stitched multifunction steering wheel. There's an AMG menu there too. As for cabin storage, well, there's pretty much everything you could want. This beautifully damped cover conceals twin cup holders, a stowage area and a 12-volt socket. Further back, there's this twin-lidded box between the seats with an SD card slot and 2 USB points. Plus, there's a large glove box, an overhead compartment for your sunglasses, and decently sized door pockets with separate moulded recesses for cups, cans and bottles. Time to take a seat in the back. Now, if you've been persuaded to buy one of these in preference to the C63 Estate model that the magazine experts will recommend you choose instead, it's here that that decision will pay off. The GLC 63 has 33mm more length in its wheelbase than one of those would offer, and nearly all of that's been used for the benefit of rear seat folk, who, as a result, enjoy significantly improved room for their legs and knees. There's more headroom too, even if, as here, you opt for a model that's fitted with the kind of large optional panoramic glass roof that buyers in this segment seem to like so much. It is a pity, though, that you can't move the bench backwards and forwards in the way that you can, for example, in, say, an Audi SQ5. It doesn't recline either. Despite that, we think a couple of adults should be very comfortable here, even if they're 6-footers. Plus, they get the benefit of this central armrest with its twin cup holders. Try to fit 3 folk in here, though, and things are far less pleasant, with issues created by this rather high central transmission tunnel and the fact that the middle seat has a rather firm backrest. Let's finish by taking a look at luggage space, and that's accessed by a standard electrically operated tailgate. There's 550 litres of space on offer. That's 25 litres more than you'll get in the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio and 50 litres more than you'll find in the Porsche Macan Turbo. The GLC Coupe body style gives you a 500 litre space. Now, the included air body control air suspension system includes a self-levelling feature to help cope with heavy loads, plus the option to lower this boot floor and make life a bit easier for your arthritic Labrador. Even without that, this is certainly a practical space. There's a retaining net in the cargo area sidewall, and there's a lockable boot floor so that valuables can be safely stored in the surprisingly spacious compartment beneath with the familiar Mercedes shopping crate. Inevitably, though, this area is surprisingly spacious for a reason. That's namely that Mercedes declines to offer any kind of temporary spare wheel as standard on this car. You can't even specify run-flat tyres. Need more room? Well, thanks to the rear bench's 40-20-40 divisioning, long items like skis can easily be pushed through between rear-seated folk. For ultimate space, you activate these power release backrest buttons, which leave you with a virtually flat, extended load bay free of annoying steps and ridges. It's 1,600 litres in size with this SUV body style, or 1,400 if you go for the coupe variant. Of course, you won't be expecting a car of this calibre to be inexpensive, and this one is predictably pricey. The base GLC 63 4MATIC Plus version requiring a £70,000 budget in standard 476 HP guise. But why would you want that when another £6,750 would get you this uprated GLC 63S 4MATIC Plus model with 510 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque, enough just to give you the power bragging rights over any upstart rival. Add in a few well-chosen extras to this variant and you could easily be looking at pushing its £76,000 asking price up to around £90,000, which was the original price tag of the particular car we're testing here. Now, if you want something even more fashionable than this standard body style, Mercedes also offers the same car in both its forms with the GLC coupe body shape for around £2,500 more. Either way, you're probably going to be looking at paying around twice what you'd have had to find for an ordinary entry-level diesel-powered GLC model. Still, if you've developed a brand that has built itself a reputation for creating some of the world's most desirable performance cars, then to some extent you can almost name your price when it comes to what they cost. In recent years, Mercedes-AMG has introduced a new range of V6-engined 43-badged models to slot in below the top V8 variants, hence the availability of a GLC 43 4MATIC model with 367 HP and a price tag of around £50,000. This V8 version, though, is still the real deal. If your budget permits ownership and you're committed to owning a Mercedes-AMG mid-sized SUV, then accept no substitute. Of course, you may not be committed, that is, although some might suggest that you perhaps ought to be if you feel the need to own a family SUV with over 500 horsepower that's capable of nearly 175 miles an hour. If the SUV thing isn't a deal breaker for you, then we point out that the same engineering, the same power outputs and much the same versatility that's available here can also be provided by the Mercedes-AMG C63 Estate model, which costs a couple of thousand less, but one of those simply wouldn't have the same overtaking presence that's delivered here. There are rivals, of course, from other brands, as you'd expect there would be in such a profitable little market niche. The closest one is the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio, which offers 510 horsepower, exactly the same as this GLC 63S, for around £6,000 less. There are issues, though. The Alfa can't match the build quality of this Mercedes, and it has 100 Nm less pulling power because its Ferrari-derived engine is a V6, not a V8. The other rival you might think of as being a potentially close competitor, Porsche's Macan, is also slightly limited by having an engine with just 6 cylinders. At the time of this top GLC AMG model's launch, even the fastest Macan, the £70,000 turbo performance pack version, could only muster 440 horsepower and 600 Nm of torque, so well off the 510 horsepower and 700 Nm figures being delivered here. Are there other similarly powerful alternatives when it comes to this size of SUV? Well, not really. A BMW X4 M40i isn't fast enough, nor is an Audi SQ5. An Audi RS Q8 is closer, but that's really a bigger, pricier class of car. And the same applies to the 550 HP Maserati Levante GTS, although that car might still be a tempting alternative if you were fortunate enough to be buying in this segment, because it's the only one of the competitor models that we just mentioned which matches this Mercedes in its use of a V8 engine. From a handling perspective, though, that Maserati isn't in the same league as this top GLC. If that argument seems convincing and you're potentially interested in GLC 63 ownership, you're going to want to know just how generous this car's standard spec now is. So let's drill down into the detail of that. The spec you get, by the way, is pretty much the same, regardless of whether you choose this standard body shape or the coupe body style. So let's begin with the straightforward 476 HP GLC 63 4MATIC Plus models, which get 19-inch 10-spoke AMG alloy wheels with silver brake calipers, AMG tuned sport suspension with air body control, and an AMG body styling kit. Plus, serious driver stuff like a mechanical rear axle limited slip differential lock, an AMG Sports exhaust system, and a race start function built into the AMG SpeedShift MCT 9-speed auto gearbox. 4MATIC Plus permanent four-wheel drive is of course included, and there's an AMG Dynamic Select driving mode system too, with Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and individual settings. All buyers also get a complimentary AMG Driving Academy training experience at the Mercedes-Benz World Centre in Brooklands. Inside the standard GLC 63, there's plenty of bespoke branding, principally on the Nappa leather-trimmed AMG Sport seats, in the AMG instrument cluster, and on the Nappa leather-trimmed AMG Performance steering wheel. There's power adjustment for the front seats and the steering column. There's a 3-colour ambient lighting system, and an upper dashboard that's trimmed in stitched man-made Artico leather. As we said earlier, though, most potential buyers are going to want to find the extra for the uprated GLC 63S model that we're trying here. So what's included if you do that, aside from an extra 34 horsepower? Well, again, let's start with the driver stuff. So built into the S variant's price is the AMG Drivers Package. You have to pay extra for that on the standard model. This releases the 155 miles an hour speed limiter and raises the top speed to 174 mph. Plus, with this flagship version, there's quicker acting electronic functionality for the limited slip differential and an extra, more focused race setting for the AMG Dynamic Select drive program system, along with larger 390mm compound brake discs on the front axle to deal with all that prodigious power. For those brave enough to attempt a circuit day in this Mercedes, there's also a clever AMG Track Pace app, which can be used to analyse and improve your track driving style, courtesy of vehicle data, which is transmitted to the app in real time, direct from the car. Other GLC 63S embellishments include larger 20-inch 5 twin-spoke AMG alloy wheels with red brake calipers and matte iridium silver trimming for the rear diffuser fins. Inside, you get the addition of DTM-style Dynamica microfiber trim to the AMG Performance steering wheel and a softer Nappa leather stitched covering for the upper dashboard. There are race-style AMG Performance seats too, and they are available on the 476 HP model at extra cost. Of course, given the money being asked here, it goes without saying that both GLC 63 models get all the usual executive niceties, so things like a powered tailgate, aluminium roof rails, climate control and a reversing camera with all-round parking sensors. Mercedes also includes its LED high-performance headlamps and its super clear front-based speaker system. In addition, on the coupe variant, to compensate for that body style's restricted rear visibility, you also get a parking pilot with 360-degree camera system, which automatically steers you into spaces. Now, you can add that to this standard body style at extra cost. Plus, of course, every GLC 63 gets top-line infotainment provision, and that's courtesy of the brand's Command Online system, accessed via an 8.4-inch centre-dash screen. This includes hard disk drive 3D navigation, a 10GB music register, Linguatronic voice control, a web browser, a live traffic information feature, a DVD player and use of various Mercedes-Benz apps. Plus, you can create in your car a WLAN, that's Wireless Local Area Network Wi-Fi hotspot. Talking of cutting-edge information technology, it's also worth mentioning that this car comes with a standard Mercedes Me Connect remote online services package that works via a free app. Now, this reminds you when a service is due, and it can automatically detect and share with you details on your car's wear and tear items. In addition, the app gives you a one-touch button for fast breakdown recovery and an alarm feature that will tell you when your parking meter is about to expire. Plus, you'll be able to lock or unlock the car from wherever you are, and also locate the vehicle's position if you've gone and forgotten where you parked it. Now, if you're brave enough to lend out your GLC 63 to someone else, a geofencing feature will alert you if it leaves a preset geographical boundary. And if your car is ever stolen, a vehicle tracker will show its location anywhere in the world. On to options, and as you'd expect from any prestige brand in this segment, there are a huge number of those to consider. The one that most will feel is almost mandatory to tick is that for the throatier AMG Performance Exhaust. Another really popular option for GLC 63 owners is the premium package that we've been trying here, which gives you keyless entry and ignition, along with a 13-speaker, 590-watt Burmester stereo system and a multi-beam LED intelligent light system with cornering lights and adaptive high beam assist to make sure that oncoming traffic isn't dazzled at night. There's also contrast stitching for the dashboard and door card trimming, and a panoramic glass roof for the SUV or a smaller glass sunroof for the coupe. That intelligent light system can be ordered as an individual extra, and of course there are plenty of other extra cost items that you might like to consider. If you've stuck with the standard GLC 63 variant, you might want to add in the 20-inch wheels and the race-style AMG Performance seats that come as standard on this S version. If on the other hand you've gone for this S variant, you'll be offered the fearsomely expensive £4,285 option of AMG's high-performance ceramic composite braking system. That's recognisable by the bronze-coloured brake calipers for track day types only, we'd say. What else? Well, there's an optional head-up display that projects vital driving information onto the windscreen so that the driver can stay focused on the road ahead. And you might want to look at the air balance package, which gives you optimised air filtering and a choice of 4 cabin fragrances. Practical options include side running boards and the usual carrier bars for roof rails, roof boxes and a roof-mounted bicycle rack. Hooks, coat hangers and folding tables can be added to the front seat backs, and for the boot you can specify a storage tub, a stowage crate or a concertina ring load sill protector. You can also have a tow bar too, which, by the way, you can't have on a C63 or E63 estate. That might be important for motorsport orientated folk. On to aesthetics, there's a choice of standard metallic or Designo metallic paint finishes. Here we've got Designo Diamond White Special Metallic. You might also want to look at the AMG Night package, which is fitted to this model. That's an option that finishes many of the exterior elements, including the bumper trim, the exhaust pipes, the mirror housings, the front apron, the waistline trimming and the grille in high gloss black. Plus there are matte black roof rails. As an alternative to that, your dealer will want you to consider the AMG exterior carbon fibre package, which adds that evocative finish onto the mirror housings and the front spoiler. If you don't mind further sharpening the already very firm ride, on all variants you might want to consider a couple of alternative 21-inch wheel rim designs. Moving inside, you'll want to get the look and feel of the cabin to your specific taste. There's a choice of black, white or, as in this case, red colour schemes for the Napa leather upholstery. Trim inlay options include finishes in black ash wood, carbon fibre or high gloss black. Enough with that, let's switch to safety, which surely has to be a primary consideration when it comes to any 500 horsepower super SUV. Now, because the GLC isn't one of Mercedes' most recent designs, it can't feature the company's most cutting-edge autonomous driving technology, but there's still plenty of camera-driven safety kit for dealers to talk about. As usual, the key feature is autonomous braking, and that's Mercedes' Collision Prevention Assist Plus package, which warns the driver of an impending collision and will brake automatically if there's no response. Now, testing has indicated this whole setup will eradicate 20% of nose-to-tail accidents and will decrease their severity in a further 25% of cases. And there's more. Crosswind assist helps to stabilise the car in sudden side gusts of wind, and steer control steering assist helps you keep the wheels straight at cruising speeds, while attention assist will monitor your driving reactions for drowsiness. There's also an active bonnet to protect pedestrians and the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus a knee bag for the driver. As you'd expect, tyre pressure monitoring and all the usual electronic aids for traction, braking and stability control are included too. An optional lane tracking package can also throw in blind spot assist to stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake when you're on the move, and lane keeping assist to let the driver know if the car is inadvertently wandering over road markings on the highway. Now, you can get more proactive, so-called active versions of those blind spot assist and lane keeping assist systems by opting for the extra cost driving assistance package. Now, the active element designates the fact that in this form, those features don't merely warn you of danger, but they also lightly alter the steering to help you to take avoiding action away from the hazard. That optional driving assistance package also includes 3 further camera-driven features. The first of these is pre-safe brake. Now, like the standard collision prevention assist plus autonomous braking system that we mentioned earlier, it can automatically brake the car to help you avoid hitting things, but in this case the focus is specifically on avoiding rear end collisions. The second driving assistance package feature, BAS Plus with cross traffic assist, helps with that too, prompting you to brake in hazardous situations and adding in extra brake pressure if you're too tentative, while also working at junctions and roundabouts to avoid possible collisions from the side. Thirdly, there's Distronic Plus with steering assist and stop and go pilot. Now, that is a cruise control system which automatically keeps you a safe distance behind the car in front at highway speeds, if necessary even braking you down to a stop and starting you off again. The Federal Office of Statistics reckons that the driver of a Mercedes is 9.6% less likely to have an accident than the driver of a car of any other brand. Looking at what's on offer here, you can begin to see why. You wouldn't expect the running costs of a 4-litre petrol-powered V8 SUV weighing 2 tonnes to be inexpensive, nor are they. Still, just imagine how bad they would have been with the old-school 5.5 and 6.2-litre V8s that AMG used to have. This GLC 63's twin-turbo 4-litre V8 is much more advanced than those 2 old-school engines, and on a long, easy highway cruise, you might actually be a bit surprised at just how many miles you can get out of it before you need to get out and brush your brogues on a filling station forecourt. Let's get to the figures, which see the standard 476 HP SUV model on 19-inch wheels return 24.4 mpg on the combined cycle and 265 grams per kilometre. For the coupe, the figures are only fractionally altered, 24.6 mpg and 262 grams per kilometre. The readings that you get for this 510 horsepower S model aren't much different, and they vary mainly because of this variant's inclusion of larger 20-inch wheels. For this SUV S derivative, you're looking at 23.7 mpg and 270 grams per kilometre. For the 63S Coupe, the figures are 24.1 miles per gallon and 267 grams per kilometre. Whatever the version you choose, these readings combined with the 66-litre fuel tank would give you a motorway range of about 400 miles, which is poor without being embarrassing. Of course, away from the motorway, you'll probably struggle to get anywhere near those figures, especially if you use this car as its design is intended. And should you ever take it on a track, well, you'll probably struggle to average 10 miles per gallon. Both of this GLC 63's most direct rivals, the Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio and the Porsche Macan Turbo Performance Pack, can do considerably better than this, delivering around 30 mpg on the combined cycle and under 220 grams per kilometre of CO2. But then you'd expect that, given that those cars have only 6 cylinders. A Falterback can offer 6 cylinders in a performance-orientated GLC2 in the form of the Mercedes-AMG GLC 43-4matic, which might be a better bet if you find this 63 model's efficiency figures a bit eye-watering. That 367 horsepower V6 engine 43 variant still offers searing performance, but it does so while returning 34 miles per gallon and 189 grams per kilometre. Is that enough of an incentive to switch away from this V8 version? No, we didn't think it would be. Console yourself, though, with the knowledge that something like a comparably powerful Maserati Levante 3.8 V8 GTS will cost you even more to run. When you're not herring about in this car, you can keep running costs to some extent within reasonable bounds by setting the AMG Dynamic Select Drive Mode controller in Comfort, in which setting an Eco Start-Stop function will operate to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Comfort also activates a gliding mode, which at cruising speeds between 37 and 99 miles an hour decouples the engine from the rest of the powertrain. Once that's done, the electronics reduce revs to an idling level, and the motion resistance is reduced by the compression and frictional forces of the engine in its overrun mode. In addition, of course, the driver will need to play his or her part, and there's a fuel consumption screen on the fascia's Command Central Media display, which gives you graphical evidence of your success or otherwise in achieving maximum efficiency. What else? Well, the comprehensive 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is built on by Mercedes' Mobilo scheme, which delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years, as long as you continue to have your car serviced at the Mercedes main dealer. And it's also worth knowing that your maintenance outlay can be kept a little in check by going for the optional service care package, which takes care of routine maintenance, spreading the cost of regular servicing, and guaranteeing the price of parts and labour for up to 4 services, and also covering the cost of all recommended service items like brake fluid, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters and screen wash. As usual with Mercedes models, there's also an assist dashboard service indicator which monitors engine use and tells you exactly when a garage visit's due. Mercedes-AMG products aren't noted for especially strong residual values, but then that'll be the case with obvious rivals too. Buy new and within a few months you might lose the kind of money that would buy a cheap family hatchback, but then in buying a 500 horsepower petrol-powered super SUV you'd probably be expecting that. Independent experts expect the GLC 63 to retain around 52% of its original value after the usual 3-year ownership period. In comparison, a Stelvio Quadrifoglio would retain 58% and a Macan Turbo 63%. Another thing you'll be expecting is sky-high insurance groupings, and you won't be disappointed there either. The standard GLC 63 rates at Group 46 or 47, with this GLC 63S pitched to Group 47 or 49. Still, that'll all be forgotten by buyers the very first time they fire up that V8. The easy way to summarise here would be to point out that if you wanted a versatile, spacious, high-performance V8 road burner of this size, a Mercedes-AMG C63 Estate makes far more sense. It uses all the same engineering that's on offer here. It's cheaper, it's more efficient, and because it's 200 kilos lighter and lower to the ground, it handles much better. Despite all of that, this GLC 63 will be the car that a potential buyer in this segment is much more likely to want. It has a road presence that the C63 just doesn't possess, and from your elevated perch at the wheel, you'll enjoy it all the more. Does any Mercedes-AMG product make more of a statement than this one? Well, possibly only the GT sports car. Ideally, you'd have both. Critics, of course, are lining up to snipe at this car for its weight, its prodigious thirst, and what, in their eyes, is a misguided sense of automotive fashion. It tries, they'll tell you, to be 5 cars in one: SUV, estate, performance sports car, luxury saloon, and in its alternative form, coupe as well. Yet, it ends up hitting none of these marks satisfactorily. Well, to some extent that is true, but it's quite a thing to watch this model strive to reach such an impossible objective and get surprisingly close to meeting it. Whether it's worth paying double the cost of an ordinary GLC to enjoy such a performance is a decision only you can make. Perhaps the bigger picture here, though, is that in a world of eco-technology and global warming, the days of the big V8-powered SUV must inevitably be numbered. If funds permit, and you like what Mercedes has tried to do here, then we'd suggest that you buy one and enjoy it while you can.